Well, what event is that then that could be large enough that you could lock the entire planet down again and implement a digital ID at the same time?
An EMP, man. A solar flare.
Damn, it comes back to it.
Yeah.
They would ride on top of that natural event to
Right.
get that same outcome, but then they're going to get two outcomes. They're going to get a little bit of depop, but they're also going to get a reset on the economy because, oh no, all the banks went down. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining David Nino Rodriguez, Nino's Corner.tv joining me today. I'm on the edge of solar activity driving changes in our jet streams over these 400-year cycles that disrupt food production. We're at it again. A lot of the elite circles understand these cycles better than many. And he understands more on the political end of a lot of these agendas being carried out, whether it be Agenda 21, which is flipped to Agenda 2030, that whole movement of politics to move these chess pieces into place to control food production, food distribution through digital IDs, etc. That's his wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is over here looking at the 2026 Year Ahead magazine for The Economist magazine, showing you clearly that cake that's labeled 250 or 250 years is either a new established magnetic field point, magnetic field wandering where they're pointing to, or the unusual stratospheric, polar disruptions that we're having. They're showing you something this year that cold's going to go really far south. In my opinion, food's going to get more disrupted. So we're going to take it from that end. And David, appreciate you joining me. Digital ID, earth changes, polar disruptions, and it seems like governments around the world are absolutely preparing for some sort of massive event, and they're just not telling us, but they are quietly preparing and setting up laws to control the populace while they continue to ready themselves continuity. And, maybe I'll start off with the simplest question. I mean, would you warn the populace the way you see them behave on the average, just daily workings of a person walking on the street? I would still try, but, things are stranger these days. So I'll leave it there. And thanks for joining. This is going to be a great conversation, everyone. Just lock in for this one because you're going to be smashed against the back of your seat by the end of it. Here we go.
Yeah, I definitely know they have a big play up their sleeve, and what they're getting ready to do. Weather warfare is real. I mean, they can manipulate and steer hurricanes. They can cause Arctic, shifts. They can cause freezes. Earthquakes. I mean, this is not anything that's new to my audience. We all know about this. I've had guests on that discuss this, but I think the big one's coming, right? And you have Gavin Newsom out there right now touting himself, parading around, masquerading, saying he's going to be the future climate change president. So I know they're losing on all fronts. They're losing on all fronts. But what big weapon do they still have? Weather warfare. And I think they're going to use that card, they will hoist Newsom into the spotlight to take over and throw mud all over Trump's face. I think something big's getting ready to come now, whether it's an earthquake on the West Coast, volcanic eruptions, whether it's an Arctic freeze, it's coming. I mean, we're all seeing, the Northern Lights now in Alabama. I mean, things are happening on this planet that we've never before seen. And I've had guests on that have come on to say that, their governments, I had Stuart Swerdlow on, and I can try to get him on your show as well, talking about, his great uncle was the first Soviet Union president. He was the first president of the Soviet Union. His cousin started the KGB, and he gets debriefed by people within the government. He says that there's been 2 star explosions. I don't know the correct terminology for that. Maybe you can correct me on that. 2 star explosions in the distant galaxy, or in this, right? That is now the gamma rays are coming into our solar system and bombarding our planet.
The Fed's out of options, rate cuts, money printing, balance sheet reversals. They call it policy, but it's really panic. This is the end game economics, where hope replaces discipline and the illusion of control finally breaks. They're not cutting rates because things are strong. They're cutting rates because the system is cracking. The labor market's stalling. Confidence in the dollar is fading fast. For decades, the Fed built a house of paper. Now they're striking the match that could burn it down, leaving you to pay the price. Every cycle ends the same. Bubbles, bailouts, and broken retirements. That's why smart investors are moving to what's real. Gold and silver. When's the last time you actually held the wealth you've spent your life working for? My friends at Noble Gold Investments have been helping Americans move from paper wealth into real, tangible assets. Numbers on a screen can disappear, but physical gold and silver, that's lasted through every single crisis in history. Go to 2030gold.com and get your free wealth protection kit today. That's 2030gold.com. Click on that link in the description box below and discover how easy it is to protect your future. And for this holiday season, when you open a qualified account with Noble Gold Investments, you'll receive 10 1-ounce commemorative silver holiday coins, limited edition, and a joyful way to celebrate the season and invest in something real.
Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But he has called some predictions on my show that, the government shutdown, when it would reopen to the day, 2 weeks before anyone would know this. I mean, he's called some great predictions, but and then I've had Juan on talking about how this weather warfare is real, and then I've had other guests on talking about, like Dane Wigington, talking about geoengineering. I think it all plays hand in hand together, and I think 2026 is going to be a big, big year for something catastrophic to happen to our food supply, to the economy. I think this is the year.
Somebody would have to know the cycle onset, the intensification, and then that apex period of when we roll into this. It can't be salvaged any longer type of knowledge. So you look at this play that they've been taking all the people out of the Sahel and North Africa, bringing them up to Europe. But as you know, if you don't know, the West African monsoon has shifted to tremendous amounts of rainfall. And the African mega lakes are starting to fill up from beneath because all of this excess rainfall is now flowing in there. That's why you see town after town, village after village getting flooded to, never seen before depths, because 7,000 years ago, those were larger than all the Great Lakes combined in America, these mega lakes in Africa. We got the New Renaissance Dam, the White Elephant over there, the largest hydroelectric project in some of the driest areas of Africa, the World Bank funded, and it filled up 7 years early. Now we're looking at double rotation crop because the above ground rainfall is increasing to exponential levels, but those aquifers beneath Africa, the Sus aquifer, Nubian sandstone aquifer, they've never been tapped before in an industrial fashion. So we got pristine primary water, which Deborah Tavares talks about, 2 primary spots over in Africa. The above ground water rainfalls there. We could do a double rotation crop. We could restart the world economy just focusing on that area for food production out of the world. And I've seen some different reports on how the World Bank and the IMF wanted to fund this. They want to take all food production into a centralized location, which is going to be North African Sahel, and distribute it from there to the rest of the planet. Then we could save the planet in rewild areas. This is their whole plan. Problem was there was too many people there. So they've exported 10 million plus fighting age men over to up into Europe. And now that area is pretty much depopulated of fighting age men. And lo and behold, we're going to go back in there and set it up as a grow zone. Somebody knew this, because the reason I would say that long-winded is the volcano that just erupted in Ethiopia hadn't erupted in 10,000 years. To your point about the micronovas coming in, the galactic cosmic rays, they excite magma chambers. So if we're getting a dual pulse of magnetic or cosmic rays coming in, the electromagnetism inside those chambers would be excited enough to get those punch throughs. And that's why we get once in a 10,000 year eruption, because we're having an extra 2 inputs now into the system. Somebody knew this in advance, or they would not have set up the Ethiopian dams, and they would not have pushed all those people out of Africa to get it empty when they start growing again, unless they had foreknowledge of these cycles. I'll just leave it there.
Right. And I think you sent me the cover of, what is it, Politico magazine?
The Economist magazine.
The Economist magazine, right. Well, they're both guilty of this, but they always project what they're going to do before it happens. It just works that way. So when you see something on the cover like Economist magazine, you can pretty much take that to the bank. And from what I saw on the cover, and I'm sure you'll show it during the show or something like that, but it does show like an Arctic freeze, correct? I mean, so it shows something getting ready to happen that they're planning on. And they do this. They can't do this without telling you first. So to me, even in El Paso, they were having droughts in California. I was talking to Dane Wigington about this. Droughts in California, but we had record rainfall. And not only record rainfall, we had earthquakes. Dude, we don't ever have earthquakes in El Paso, never. And all of a sudden we're getting a 4.3 3, 3.9. Never before in my life have I ever felt an earthquake in El Paso, and the desert has never been so green. And it just dumped on us. Like, so whatever that was not dumping in California, it got dumped on in El Paso. And, we can see these bipolar changes happening in the weather. Anybody can see this. Everybody can feel this. So I think 2026 is going to be a monumental year for this. I think and I tend to believe, in my mind of minds, I do believe. I know, Stuart Swirlo has come on and talked about the gamma rays hitting the planet. I'm sure a lot of this does have to do with that, but I do believe there's a human hand playing into this, and I do believe, a lot of it is geoengineering and weather warfare speeding up the process. I don't think anyone's any more guilty than the other. I think it's all combined.
Yeah, gamma ray is exciting the inner bowels of our Earth to excite silica-rich magmas. That's beyond our reach,
Right.
maybe.
Nothing.
But above that, I agree. The way they can bend jet streams, put in high pressure systems, lock them in place for weeks or months. We've already seen this over the last several years. Dry out an area, flood another area. The whole thing was about 2025 owning the weather anyway. And imagine now they're at the point where they can't stop the programs any longer because the amount of disruption that would occur if everything tried to restabilize on its own. And you got to think about cosmic radiation management also with the nanoparticulate metals. Those different galactic cosmic rays coming in, hitting a nanoparticulate piece of metal nullifies the charge. So when it comes cascading through the atmosphere, it doesn't have the cloud building abilities that it did before. Because I was told
talking about chemtrails, basically.
Yeah, exactly. A dual purpose. Now, one's easier to sell to the public. Oh, they're doing, stratospheric aerosol geoengineering. They're changing the weather. They're changing the jet streams. The clouds are moving. They're raining here. They're raining there. Oh, wait. If we stop doing that, we're going to have 7 times more rainfall because the cosmic rays coming in and cloud building during this weak magnetic field period. Which one's easier to sell to the public?
Right. No, I agree with you. I totally agree with that. I just, I remember as a kid, the sun used to be yellow, a bulbous yellow, right? Now when I look at it, it's white. The sun's white and there's chemtrails in the sky. That wasn't in the sky in the 70s and early 80s. I remember that it was a beautiful, the cumulus clouds, the whole thing. Now I go outside and they're playing tic-tac-toe in the sky and there's a film on my car or on my truck and the sun now is white. And I'd like to know your perspective on that. Is the sun being excited by these gamma rays? Is it causing it to change optically the color of the sun? I remember, and I'm sure you remember as well, in the 70s, 80s, the sun used to be yellow, like a corn yellow. Now it's white. Am I crazy for thinking this?
No, but some reports now around the world are saying that it's turning blue. Now, I don't know optically what's happening with their interference pattern on the light spectrum, where there's reports of tinging green sun and tinging blue sun. Now, optically, the way we perceive light, so maybe it's the same people with color blindness seeing something different. But there are now multiple reports coming in where it's sort of tinging blue. Now, that would be John Casey's book when he looked at different angstrom wavelengths. So, and he put the blue sun on the cover. So is that the next step down color? Or is it indeed that much obfuscation of particulates in the atmosphere that it's bending light itself? That's called terraforming if it is. That's not geoengineering. We are way scaled up above that to terraforming the planet if you're disturbing the amount of sunlight coming in at that point where it's noticeable. And what's interesting is going back to being a kid in the 70s, NASA always told us, oh, the sun's yellow. We had all those multiple space, shots up there, satellites going everywhere, International Space Station, all that goodness when we were kids. It was all new and it was always on the news. The sun was yellow. Now NASA's stepping back on, no, the sun's always white. It's always been white. It's white. You just, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're trying to gaslight everybody here who's not as old as the people who actually grew up through that era of all that new space tech that was front and center. And we saw it with our own eyes. And you're trying to tell us the sun has always been white, just trying to overlap, that, hey, all that stuff up there, making it white is actually, it's a white sun. You're not seeing anything unusual. So just go back to sleep.
I think what they're doing is predictive programming, or what they're doing is conditioning the public to believe, and this is up to anyone personal, what they want to believe in. I don't know. I don't know what to believe. I think it's going to be an EMP, but I think they're conditioning us to accept the fact that we're going to get hit with a solar flare, which could be it. I don't know. I'm not claiming I know that, but I know the plans of the deep state. I've been doing this now for the last really 10 years, extensively the last 6, but it looks to me like they'll blame it on a solar flare when we finally get hit with something like an EMP that just knocks out the grid. Look at the Carrington event that happened in the 1850s, and that took out all telecommunications. So the telegraph, right? So now what would it take out with us? It would take out absolutely everything. And it would decimate society. It would, I mean, millions, if not billions of people would be taken out by this throughout, not just with the first shot, but throughout the coming days, months, and hopefully it wouldn't go into years. But I think they're prepping us for this type of attack. I don't think anyone would be able to predict when it could happen, but how come they're able to do that? How come they're able to put on the cover of magazines when they suspect this stuff to happen? So to me, I always look at it like, this is predictive programming, is conditioning, and I think they're planning to hit us with some kind of EMP. If that's just my opinion.
Well, you could wait for another X5 or something larger to come off the sun and then coincide, and it's just more of a waiting game.
That wouldn't be it. I'm not saying that wouldn't be it either.
No, and they would ride on top of that natural event to get that same outcome. But then they're going to get 2 outcomes. They're going to get a little bit of depop, but they're also going to get a reset on the economy because, oh no, all the banks went down.
Kill 2 birds.
All the data and the banks all went down.
Right.
Just depends on where the planet's spinning on the daylight side as to where this event's going to occur. Like Carrington event, believe it or not, pounded our planet on the northern hemisphere over into Europe parts, but Asia was largely unaffected because it was on the other side of the planet as that event occurred, as it was spinning. Think about today, where's the BRICS nations located? So where would you hit that EMP? Over somewhere Greenlandish that would spread through America and also spread over through Europe and mainly a large part of the northern hemisphere. And then as the planet would spin, Asia would be largely unaffected. Their banking system would still be intact. Oh my gosh, we need to go to digital currency. We need to go to CBDCs or some sort of stablecoin issuance because, well, we can't, the money's no longer good. We don't know. Yeah, that's so easy to see.
I
the playbook on that, a 2-for-1 depop and also reset the money system on a natural, quote unquote, natural event.
Right. And they're going to have to move fast with this. And I think that's what Trump is doing. He's really pushing their hand. I mean, Jerome Powell is expected to step down. The Federal Reserve is in trouble. And I think they're going to have to move pretty darn fast, hopefully premature. They're not ready to make this move. And that's kind of where I'm going with this, is that Trump is pushing them to make a premature move. And I don't think they're ready to make this move yet, but they're going to have to. And it's going to still affect us. There's no way out of this. We're not going to just get over this. We're going to have to go through it. I think this is happening. I don't think there's any way out of this. My biggest concern, is a volcanic eruption in our part of the hemisphere. I think if something happens in Yellowstone, an earthquake or a volcano erupts in California. I remember just a few years back, and I'm sure you remember this as well. I think there was a volcano that erupted in Europe, and it stopped air travel. It stopped everything for weeks. There was that black smoke that got caught up in the jet stream, and it affected the entire planet. So, imagine something like Yellowstone. Imagine if these gamma rays are really what's happening here, and it excites the magma, it excites an earthquake, and that kicks off. I mean, that's extinction level event stuff, man. I mean, there's no way really to prepare for that or get out of that. It's just game over.
It can be a runaway event too. Like largely these year without a summer events are equatorial, where then it gets into that first cloud cell band, like the Hadley cells, the most famous, runs from the equator to 30 north, and it gets caught up from 30 north to 60 north and ends up at the North Pole. And subsequently south. Like that Hunga Tonga eruption was so violent with the water vapor, it took a minute to get over, but it crossed over the equator and came up north, and it encompassed a large part of the planet with water vapor. And that's why we had that heat spike and subsequent decline. But if that were to be just dry volcanic ash type, that would have been multi-years without a summer. And we saw a year without a summer, the population decline was quite steep. The economies crashed, and it was a full reset at that point. And you look back prior to 1815, coming out of the Maunder Minimum, there was reestablishment of trade, there was reestablishment of villages, and the economy started to move in a different direction of sort of globalism, and that we understand it now, where a lot of places are becoming more interconnected. But after that year without a summer, that stepped back some 35 to 40 years before they went right back up to the points they were in, say, 1805 or 1800, knocked them back that far. So again, you're only as technologically advanced as you are at that point. But to get knocked back 30 years or 35 years of invention before you come back to the starting point again, something significant happened. And you wonder, going back through history, how many times it's happened. The Roman era was at 535, the worst year to be alive. There was multiple VEI 8s across the equator that they had 10 years without a summer. So when you step that back, and then the subsequent centuries to reestablish and bring it back to the same tech. It can be large or it can be small. It's all, I guess, in context on how you're looking at it. But I think a smaller one today would do more damage because we don't grow food. So people don't know how to do very much anymore.
No, in fact, I was just reading maybe you sent it to me. I don't remember who sent it to me, but the 3D no, it was an X post actually of the 3D chicken in Campbell's soup. Have you heard about this?
Yeah.
They're making 3D chicken. I mean, it makes you wonder about all of them. Chick-fil-A, all of that stuff. Anything you eat, is it even an organic animal? I mean, we're already there. I mean, there has to be a change anyway, but we know the direction that they want to do this. They want to do this before 2030, correct? So we can imagine 2026, 2027, this is all going to escalate. Now, I'm not saying an EMP hits us in 2026, but in my mind, they have to make a move soon because Trump is kind of upsetting the apple cart in every which way. So I think they're going to move sooner than anticipated. And I think it could be 2026. But then again, I still feel they got till 2030 to do what they got to do. That's their kind of like finish line or their deadline, Agenda 2030. They've already pushed it back, right? What was it before? Agenda 2021. So here we are now, and I think, like I said, I mean, we're getting ready to go into Venezuela. We're getting ready to, the main reason we're going into Venezuela is not just the narco-terrorist traffickers. It's also the election 2020, Smartmatic. The whole thing is there. So we are getting ready to make some huge shifts and huge moves, and that means in the globalist hand. So I think 2026 is going to be a big year all the way going into 2030. This is war. I mean, this is what war looks like now. So, it's not fought really with tanks and bombs anymore. That's part of it. But now it's all about psyops, information warfare, weather warfare. I mean, that's where we're at in society right now. That's where humanity is right now. And that's why this is going to be so much more devastating. They say World War III won't, World War III will be, or World War IV would be fought with spears and arrows or whatever, rocks. I mean, if this happens, it's not going to be so much nuclear. It's going to be weather warfare, EMPs, cyber attacks, the shutdown of grocery stores, society halting, and people just die off. It's going to be a purge. That's how I see this playing out, and that's what we're dealing with. So, yeah, it's nerve-wracking, man.
You hit some very important point there. Venezuela is a very large grow zone that's not being utilized even to a fraction of its potential of crop output. Ukraine, another breadbasket of the world, Kazakhstan, Myanmar. Gee, have you heard of any of these places that are encountering problems? We just emptied out, or at least the Western powers have emptied out most of North Africa and the Sahel. It seems that these food grow spots are now becoming prime targets to be able to control that, especially around the equatorial belts or those that can have a specific microclimate. And when I was looking at safe zones back in the day, I was looking at Republic of Georgia because it was between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, had 8,000 years of constant vineyard production. And grapevines are finicky. We grow some out on our farm here, and super finicky. And if you have 8,000 years of continuous, constant habitat for them to stay in, that shows that nothing had moved in range that much, either rainfall or temperature. So very much Ukraine around that area too is right at the edge of that same zone there on the edge of the Black Sea. Those are very valuable areas. So go beyond the money. If you're going to have a civilization, you're going to need food production, and those that control the food production. So, there's all these layers on top of it. But if you tell the people, by the way, we need to continue geoengineering because we're going to get 7x rainfalls of cosmic rays. We're on a multi-thousand-year cycle, perhaps, or at least a minimum 400-year cycle of the sun going into really low solar activity that's going to dent food supply like you've never seen before. And, oh, by the way, we need to go and start invading countries to get their crop growing lands. But we want to give you a different excuse so you don't panic. Keep paying your taxes, obey the rule of law, and just keep going to work.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point because Venezuela, obviously there's other reasons we're going in there, and I do believe growing food is a big part of it. But look what else we're targeting. Look what other continent are we targeting, and it's Africa. So we could be going into Africa right after Venezuela, and I'm on under the guise of what? Well, Christian genocide, folks. How come we didn't care about this 2 years ago, 3 years ago? But we're going in now, and I think they got that very rich land, very rich minerals in Africa. So, this is happening now. I've had many guests that have just came back from Africa. They're talking about they've been in some meetings there, talking with officials. Like it's and they're talking about the Christian genocide. But I always think in the back of my mind, why are we really there? I know that's the excuse. I know that's what they're going to put out to get everyone behind why we're there. But it's bigger than that. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about or alluding to right now.
Well, and with the Agenda 2030 goals, I mean, the next thing they would have to do is stop communications and stop you allowing to have these types of ideas or actually reporting on stories that you're seeing in this thing. Hey, why are they setting up this or doing? So have you seen how much in the EU now there's all these different laws against speech of any type that doesn't agree 100% with the narrative of what's put out across the EU? And the EU is, it's Brussels. It's not really all the countries of the European Union. It's specific headquartered areas, Zurich and Brussels. But the next thing is what would have to occur is a reduction in the ability for us to communicate. If you're looking at by 2030, that our communication will need to cease between and amongst us to know really what's going on. That so you can start to see these kind of plays that are going out. And David, that's why I was asking you on, because I mean, you see politically where this is going to first. And if you start to see these same steps, then you already know that they're implemented at least in some fashion for step 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, when you understand that also about the Agenda 2030, the big thing was going to be climate change. It was going to be the big religion, the new religion was going to be climate change. That's what they were going to push on everybody. You're going to be paying carbon taxes. It was going to get insane. The green movement, the whole thing. Trump upended that. Trump just torpedoed that. It's done in America. So they know this. They have to still push this on all of the other parts of the globe. So the only way they can do this is through some kind of natural disaster or event where they can lock people down again, just like they did in COVID, and blame who? Well, the climate, the weather. And then that's how they bring people on board for their monstrous agenda that they're about to. And I think it's going to happen in 2026.
Well, what event is that then that could be large enough that you could lock the entire planet down again and implement a digital ID at the same time?
An EMP, man. A solar flare.
Damn, it comes back to it.
Yeah. So I mean,
climate change. It failed. It did fail. I've still been going at it, bruised and battered after all these years. That 2015 to 2020, trying to strangle any voice that didn't agree with that narrative.
I think also the whole Golden Dome thing, Space Force. I think that's to nullify or neutralize the effects of the EMP. That's just a theory. I don't know if that's true, but that's just where my mind goes with it. But I think the rest of the world is going to pay a heavy price. And who knows? America could too. I don't know. That's just a theory. It's just a theory. But I think they are getting ready to do this. And I think we're pushing their hand to make a premature move. I think Venezuela is going to be the kickoff. Jerome Powell stepping down. I'm hearing he could step down as early as Monday, tomorrow. That's just hearsay right now, but we know it's close. If it's not Monday, it could be sometime in the week or in the next week, but it's very close. So I think this is all guess you could say, like the birth pains to the big event.
They're getting sloppy now. They're forcing it. They have to. Anyway, David, thanks for your time. Just remember out there, keep your eyes open, because what we're talking about today is just just the tip of the iceberg, and they're getting so sloppy. They have to force it. There's some kind of deadline that they understand, but they don't care how they drag themselves across the finish line, whether 50% of the planet understands or not. They are getting sloppy and careless, reckless, and they just don't care. There's something that must be achieved by a certain point. So they know there's a backup plan to the backup plan. So they just don't care any longer. So, keep your eyes open with that. Any last thoughts there?
No, I agree with you completely. I mean, I think it's all just ingredients to the big recipe. I think that they're going to hit us with something, and whether it's I think they're all playing a part. The gamma rays, the geoengineering, You know, I think the weather warfare, everything, it's all playing. I think there is levels of climate change. I think humans are playing a part in this. It's all adding into the one big recipe of disaster, which is coming. And I think the initial hit will be a deep state hit. And I'm hoping we survive it. I think humanity comes out winning, but I think an EMP is what's in the cards in my mind. And earthquakes. And earthquakes.
Keep adding to the list.
I'm trying to stay positive.
Know your mesh network on your ham radio groups around your counties. That'd definitely be a start. Know where your farmers are, so if you can go visit them and get them direct from the source. Because if supermarkets close and your credit cards don't work, farmers still take gold and silver, guaranteed. You might say, well, they don't take it. Oh, they will. I'm sure they will. But anyway, thanks for joining us today, David Nino Rodriguez. You can check him out at ninoscorner.tv. I'll put those links in the description box below with the video so you can click and go. And I do thank you for your time. Hope you got something out of our chat here. See you next time. Bye.
You got it, man. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much, David.
Yep. We'll see you again. Ciao.
God bless you.